I wasn't even planning this, but hey, this is coming out on J.R.R. Tolkien's birthday. Now, let's talk about the worst iterations of his work. I previously discussed the Rankin Bass Hobbit and how, even with minor flaws, it was a charming adventure story that retained the heart of the source material. However, it was an outlier in the landscape of trash that was Tolkien media adaptations in the 20th century. If you were a fan of the Land of Middle-earth, you were not in much luck if you wanted to see it translated onto the big screen. The first of these is so callously cynical that there's little reason to mention it, but I might as well. The 1966 Hobbit movie. I wouldn't really call this a movie, it's barely a short film. It was essentially made for the sole purpose of retaining rights to the novel so they could later sell them at a higher price. Yeah, one of those kind of things, only worse. When they found out that there was no prerequisite for how long it was, they just made this. Seriously, give an artist with a mic and a movie maker, and they could remake this exact same film, but much better in less than 2 days. It's just still images panning across the screen. Even for 1966, this isn't much effort. The plot is also really bad, and even confusing for a 12-minute short. There's a princess now, all the doors are gone, and they changed the names for no reason.
Monster lizards slag the terrible. Groans, hungry brutes with skin as thick as bark of the hateful grablins. We durstn't let it take our dearest ring, glue.
Was there some kind of copyright on classic creature titles or something? Even though they own the rights to the book, apparently? Yeah, this is bad. But at least it's disgustingly short, so go watch the full thing on YouTube if you won't. It's a 4 out of 10. Now we get to the Ralph Bakshi Lord of the Rings. This is the absolute low point in versions of Tolkien's world. I know there's certain places where Jackson was inspired. I know as John freaking Hurt as Aragorn.
Because if I wanted the ring for myself, I could have it. Now.
Which indeed is awesome. Plus, Frodo's a bit more assertive than he is in the 2000s version. But holy crap, everything else about the shambling ring wraith of a film is god-awful. Its implementation of live action and weird rotoscope animation could be considered a revolutionary move, but I'm sorry, it just looks flat out awful. It takes me out of it every time I see some weird thing in the background that just completely contradicts the rest of the style. Plus, even the animation that looks more regular is filled with such stupid expressions and awkward movements. Oh, and the voice acting. Oh my god, besides the previously mentioned John Hurt and for some reason C-3PO as Legolas, it's all terrible. Gollum has turned from a legit creepy menace to a pathetic wimp who I constantly want to shut the hell up. Everyone else is in total bizarre, over-the-top loon that I can never take seriously, especially when the film wants me to. And the main reason I hate this version, look what they did to Sam.
Oh my! Oh, hooray!
Sam, one of the most loved Middle-earth characters, gets turned into this character that's basically... I'm not even going to say it. Just look at what they did to the poor guy and let it speak for itself.
Oh my! Oh hooray!
It's moderately faithful to the half of the novel it's adapting, but the details of each scene are so incompetent that I almost wish it was further from the source so I could laugh at it more. Holy crap, is this entire thing terrible. Capped off with a rather generic fantasy score, I really dislike this. Plus, the director Ralph Bakshi was mad the producers of the Lord of the Rings trilogy and they sent him gifts and praises for making this piece of shit. It gets a 1 out of 10. I hate it. After the 1978 film was a success at the box office, but I guess everyone hated it because a sequel was never made. Therefore, in 1980, our old pals behind The Hobbit, Rankin Bass released Return of the King. This film isn't really a sequel to Ralph Bakshi's version, thank God, but brings on the character models and voice actors from The Hobbit. And it's the one production in this video that actually gets close to being good. It has major handicaps starting off, as it begins in the middle of the story without any explanation of what happened beforehand. A big problem is to focus on the Hobbits in Mordor part of Return of the King, which is only 3 chapters in the original novel. All the other stuff involving Aragorn is completely skimmed over. Hell, the king in the title Return of the King doesn't even get a speaking role. All we're left with is a really dragged out Mordor sequence accompanied by really bad songs.
Where there's a wit, there's a way. Where there's a wit, there's a way. Where there's a whip, we don't want to go to war today.
So yeah, I appraise the original Hobbit's musical qualities as they fit the tone of the children's book. They don't fit Lord of the Rings at all. It's a granted, more serious adult tales, and these musical segments feel embarrassing in this version. Overall, I'd say this is a steep improvement over Ralph Bakshi, particularly thanks to the returning talents of Orson Bean, Brother Theodore, and John Huston. The animation style is also carried over from The Hobbit, which is still pleasant to look at. Finally, seeing a woman in this confirms my assessment of these as basically Tolkien anime. And the definitive thing that makes this much better than Bakshi, Sam actually works and is kind of a badass. But it's still not particularly good. I'm going to give it a 6 out of 10. When the 1985 Russian Hobbit was on YouTube, I loved experiencing it. Not in terms of the original version, but there was this guy called These Bears who made subtitles for it without actually knowing Russian. What follows was immature but absolutely hilarious. She got great jokes accompanying the obviously cheap production that was hilariously terrible. Sadly, you can't see it due to Russia copywriting it, but watch out for it if it ever goes up again. Due to these circumstances, I haven't recently watched it. In terms of the script, it was remarkably faithful in the bits it took, but the staging is rather laughable, so that doesn't really count for much. There was also a Finnish miniseries called Hobbitit that adapted Riddles in the Dark and the Hobbit sections of Lord of the Rings, but I can't really find it anywhere, so I can't really say anything on it. Therefore, I believe we're done. Thank you for joining me into this lunacy-filled look at bad Middle-earth adaptations, and next time, we're finally going to be talking about Peter Jackson's work. Thank you so much for watching, and please subscribe if you feel sufficiently inclined.
Where there's a whip, there's a way. Where there's a whip, there's a way. Left, right, left, right, left. Where there's a whip, there's a way. Left, right. A crack on the back says we're gone.